Good evening, councillors, officers, members of the public, both here at Melbourne Town Hall and tuning in. I declare this meeting open at 5:31 p.m. and I welcome you all. I note that Councillor Louis is joining the meeting virtually via Zoom. We can see you on the screen here at Town Hall, Kevin. We are meeting on Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we govern, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We acknowledge and honour the unbroken spiritual, cultural and political connection they have maintained to this unique place for more than 2,000 generations. We accept the invitation in the Uluru Statement from the Heart and are committed to walking together to build a better future. Today is indeed, being the 26th of May, is Sorry Day, and on indulgence I will read a short statement. On National Sorry Day, we acknowledge the experiences of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who were forcibly removed from their families and communities. It is also a day to reflect on how we can contribute to the process of healing. We have so much more to learn from each other. Melbourne has not only an ancient but also a very recent history of great achievements of Aboriginal people. This history is important and we should all know it better. We start with sorry, we continue with action. Secondly, I would like to read out a statement in relation to the passing of Neil Daniher, a condolence statement. We mourn the passing of Neil Daniher, OAM, to Jan, Beck, Ben, Lauren, Luke and the entire Daniher family. We extend our deepest sympathies. When it comes to heroes of modern Melbourne, it is hard to think of anyone bigger than Neil Daniher, not just because of what he achieved through the big freeze, but also his courage, composure and conviction against all odds. Neil Daniher transcended football. He was determined on the field and even more resilient in life. Neil was someone who never wanted a fuss made about him, but he carries a legacy that is profound. Neil created a national movement with the Big Freeze, raising vital funds for research into motor neuron disease. Hopefully this year will be the biggest ever as millions of Australians partake to remember the Reverend. We move on to agenda item 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. If any councillor has either a general or material conflict of interest as defined in the Local Government Act in relation to a matter to be considered by council, please disclose the type of and nature of your interest prior to consideration of the item. We move on to agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. I call on a councillor to move a motion adopting the open minutes of council meeting number 17 held on Tuesday the 28th of April 2026. Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Seconded Councillor Scott. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. I can see Councillor Louis as well. That's carried unanimously. All right, we move on to agenda item 4, matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any matters arising from those minutes that we need to call out? No. Then we move on to correspondence and submissions. The following submissions have been received in accordance with the Council's governance rules in relation to agenda item 5.1, Acting Chief Executive Officer. We have an item of correspondence from Chris Thrum. In relation to agenda item 6.1, Budget 26-27, we have an item of correspondence from the Homeless Persons Union Victoria. In relation to agenda item 6.2, community engagement policy, we have items of correspondence from Jackie Watts from the Melbourne Maritime Heritage Network, B. McNicholas, and from David Willis. Noting this item was deferred from the 28 April council meeting, submissions received to the deferred report were from Dr. Stan Capp, B. McNicholas, and David Willis. That was for the community engagement policy, to be clear. In relation to the status of confidential items, does any councillor wish to discuss the confidential status of any of the confidential items listed in the public agenda for this evening? Councillor Owen Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would just like to register my usual, well, what could you say, complaint about that, those that is contained within that section. But that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guest. Noting that we have gone to some lengths this evening to ensure that as much of some items, like leasing of new warehouses and such, it's actually been brought into open forum, which hopefully you would agree is a positive step.
I acknowledge that. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for a little bit of progress.
Okay, we move on to agenda item 5, reports from committee. There is one report from committee, being the Chief Executive Officer Employment Matters Advisory Committee, acting 5. And that goes to agenda item 5.1, acting Chief Executive Officer. The purpose of this report is to enable, just checking, do any councillors or officers have a conflict in relation to the agenda item 5.1?
No, Lord Mayor.
No?
There's not in the chamber.
Ah, yes, indeed. Okay. The purpose of this report is to enable the council to consider the appointment of an acting chief executive for the period 26 June to 7 August 2026 inclusive, during which the chief executive officer will be on leave. So I'm going to request that we please bring a motion up onto the screen. That is the correct motion. I'm going to move that motion, looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Guest, as our lead on finance and governance. And look, this is a procedural motion appointing Rick, somebody very well known to us here at Town Hall, as who normally serves in the position of General Manager Infrastructure and Amenity, to serve in the role as Acting Chief Executive Officer for that period from June through August. I think that is fairly self-explanatory. Over to you, Councillor Owen Guest.
I'd just like to add that I do endorse this motion. Rick, I believe, has 9 months prior experience acting in such a role. I think we've all seen him act, well, in my case, I've seen him act in the last 18 months in his current role. I describe him as a technocrat, but I have every faith in his ability to conduct Alison's role while she is away.
Thank you, Councillor Guest. Would any other councillors like to speak to this motion? No, in that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 5, reports from committee. We've done that. We now move on to reports from management, and there are 6 reports from management. The first of those, agenda item 6.1, is budget 2026-27. Would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No? All right. Well, I am going to request that a motion please be put on the screen. Yeah, it looks like the screen is gone blank. There we go. All right, that is the motion that was circulated by officers in the papers with one very small amendment there on a number which I understand is agreed.
Is there a clause missing, Lord Mayor?
Did you have a question relating to the potential inclusion of a clause related to TAP, Councillor
That's the
Ball?
one I was expecting, yes.
I see that Rick Kwasek is now returned to the chamber. Did you want to ask your question regarding TAP? And from that, we may be able to ascertain whether or not
Your
that
office
clause is
has
needed.
drafted a clause for inclusion. Your office has drafted a clause, to add to this motion.
All right. Well, I might ask a question of Rick. My office informed me that there was a question to be put to Rick that relates to the TAP. Councillor Ball has a proposed amendment which requires, how would I frame this, improved transparency and reporting around the TAP program. Rick, are you familiar with that proposed amendment?
Yes, I am.
And what is your response to that proposed amendment, Rick?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I have recently sent an email to councillors which updates councillors on the expenditure against the TAP program. I'd be quite happy for that email and its contents, including the attached table, to be included on the website. If that would satisfy the requirements around transparency.
That would satisfy the proposed amendment, which we can't see yet, of course, but that's not a reason why it shouldn't be included for the benefit of the public to see what we're doing and to notify them and alert them to the fact that it's going to be published on the website. So given that those two things are in supreme accordance, I would prefer that the motion appear on the screen as agreed with your office.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Guest? Just an additional clause that goes to the, makes very explicit that those additional reporting mechanisms will be in place. So if that is the case, can we please put in, I think it's a new clause 7.6. Do you want me to read it to you? Yep. For the benefit of, well, it's just coming up on the screen, it reads, request management prepare a financial statement on the Transport Amenity Program, clearly stating how much of the program will be expended and when, to be hosted on the City of Melbourne public website by the end of June 2026. And there it is. And clause 7.8, that will do. Comfortable with that, Councillor Guest?
Tremendous. So that doesn't alter the budget document at all. It just makes that clear on our website. That's my understanding.
Yep.
Is that yours?
It is indeed.
Thank you.
Yes, comfortable.
All right. All right. Are you happy to move that motion before us, Councillor Guest?
Yes.
All right. And I will second it. Back to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've been thinking, like I think a lot of us, for quite a long time about this budget, the highlights and perhaps the less than highlights. Within it, it does leave me torn. It takes me back approximately 12 months when we delivered our first budget, and I outlined a few things that I expected to see going forward. Things such as transparency were front and centre. But I'll start with the highlights. On the proviso, of course, that we deliver, this would be the third surplus in a row, and it will see a debt profile greatly improved from where it stood some 24 months ago, even if it could be better. It is nevertheless a high spending budget, which goes hand in hand with high taxing, or in this case, an increased burden on the ratepayer. There is good and bad. Which brings me to, there is a culture, if you like, of collecting as much revenue as possible and spending it. That we're trying to turn around. at this point, I would say thank you to some of those who've made submissions and those who've commented on this budget. I think they've been objective. Some have, I think, fairly commented on the improvements that have been made. I saw our Lord Mayor and myself being commended for, bringing the budget into surplus, improving its debt, and I think someone actually compared us to a state of the United States. I think it was Chris Thrum, actually, who we see often. Others also made submissions in terms of governance, of where we could improve, and that, of course, is my focus. As you know, as we move forward, I want to see further improvements there. Highlights, of course, whilst I acknowledge the burden on the ratepayers, it is going, to, at least in 2 cases, to very good causes. The safety of both the City of Melbourne and Melbourne in general, I think everybody agrees, is paramount, and we are doing our bit, and we would hope to do more in the future. On top of that, those who are disadvantaged and suffering homelessness in Melbourne, I think the City of Melbourne can lay claim to doing what it can. Not to say what we do, everything we're doing is perfect, but we are certainly trying to alleviate that problem, and those sort of things that are in our budget that I don't think any ratepayer would argue against. This brings me to transparency, which I mentioned earlier. Some people might have noted that I vote against a few motions here in Council. In some cases, this is my protest against making decisions that involve public money, our money, behind closed doors, in an environment that could be described as secrecy. Our grants and sponsorship programs are a case in point. They still are held now in closed sessions, notwithstanding my recommendations of Chair of Governance, as well as the recommendations of management. I find that very difficult to comprehend, and I bring it up because as I look to the community and want to say that we are doing all we can to spend our money wisely, it's a hard sell when we do things behind closed doors. There is also an seeming inability, or if you like, to consult with Melbourne's ratepayers. We highlight youth roundtables, international students, but somehow we never get back to the pointy end of talking to our ratepayers. And again, that comes down to consultation, where I think we have room for improvement. Finally, that we couldn't reduce spending by around $10 million on an over $800 million budget to alleviate the burden on our ratepayers is a little beyond me. With all of that said, we have done a lot of good things. I am in 2 minds. Last year I voted for the budget, but I wanted to see improvement. We've seen some improvement, but in 2 areas I really think we've got some way to go. That bothers me, and I will keep pushing in ways that I don't think any of my fellow councillors will be surprised about, and hopefully in the next 12 months they will in fact see the light and support it further. I can end it right there at this stage, Lord Mayor, and if you'd like to add your comments, they'd be welcome.
Thank you very much, Councillor Guest. I'm very happy to speak as seconder and in support of this budget that is before Council this evening. Can I also begin by thanking councillors, in particular yourself, Councillor Owen Guest, as our lead in finance. I know you wear the badge Fiscal Hawk as a badge of honour. I think it also needs to be said that you also recognise that politics and making budgets is an exercise in compromise as well. In fact, as we are coming together as humans, as a city, some compromise is needed, and I think this is a budget that does get the balance right, although I think no one here would agree that it's perfect. I also want to thank all the officers and indeed our submitters, community submitters. A city budget is truly a team effort, and there are thousands and thousands of human hours that have gone into producing this budget, and it's a document, it's a plan that I think all Melburnians can be proud of. It invests in what matters, it gets the basics right, and it builds a more livable, caring city. The budget begins on and is built on the fundamental principle of fiscal discipline, and I can confirm that we are delivering a 3rd straight surplus. I have been a councillor for long enough to remember the years when we were forecasting deficits of $70 million, when we were heading for $250 million, $250 million in debt. We are a long way from that position now, and indeed it's a source of great pride to me as a councillor and as mayor that we are now a city that is on the right fiscal track. We have also listened to the community, and we're focusing on what the community wants. First-class services that you would rightly expect in a city like Melbourne. More green space, a safe city, a clean city, a vibrant city, a city where people can engage and be heard when it comes to making a budget. This is a budget that will make Melbourne safer and kinder. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. We will double community safety officers on our streets to the number of 22 with a total investment of $3.8 million. These officers are making a real difference around Melbourne. They deter theft and poor behaviour, antisocial behaviour, improving both safety on the streets and people's perception of safety. We are making a new investment of $2.3 million in a dedicated on-street outreach team for rough sleepers and vulnerable people on our streets. This team will include 10 staff who include 2 complex case managers focused on acute mental health. This is something we have not done before in the city of Melbourne, and I am confident that it will make a real difference. I'm pleased that as this is a new endeavour, that the city will report on progress on the new on-street outreach teams, and if we need to do more, then we will. But this is a new investment. It's doing things we have not done before in the city of Melbourne, particularly with those complex case managers focused on acute mental health. We will look forward to working with the state government, who we expect to do more as well. And we know together we will make a city that is safer and kinder for everyone. City cleaning is a major focus in the budget as well. I know we will hear from other councillors on that score, but we are making a record investment on that front. We're also investing more than $2 million to light more than 6 streets, including iconic streets and lanes like Hardware Lane, Hosier Lane and Collins Street. They will not only make Melbourne safer, they will help make Melbourne more vibrant at night time as well. We're investing $1.2 million to progress a Little India precinct as well. That's a very exciting new initiative in this budget. In response to public submissions, and I do thank the Docklands community on this front, we are also going to deliver a Docklands Public Realm Improvement Plan. There will be a particular focus around Harbour Esplanade, which should be the most inviting waterfront in Melbourne. Sadly, at the moment, it is a long way from that. So that's a particularly exciting new initiative in this year's budget. On the food security front, as part of this amended budget, we're also committing $250,000 to be invested into initiatives for food security. It is a source of shock and shame to me that almost half of Melbourne residents reported difficulty accessing enough food last year. 1 in 2 people. 1 in 5 of our residents said they ran out of food last year. No one in Melbourne, no one who lives in a city as prosperous as ours should have to choose between paying a bill and feeding their family. So these are programs that will make a real difference. We're also launching our new Queen Victoria Market Food Rescue Program alongside Queen Victoria Market and the state government. QVM is the largest open-air market in the Southern Hemisphere. It generates 800 tonnes of surplus food and organic waste each year. Now we're connecting with traders and community partners like Street and Second Buy, and we will redirect surplus food to local food relief providers. We expect this program will contribute to more than 1 million nutritious, healthy meals put on plates across the city in the first year of operation. An extraordinary effort, an extraordinary example of what we can do when we come together and focus our minds on helping those who need help most. It will help us build a healthier, more connected and more sustainable city. These are just a small number of initiatives that are contained in our budget. It is a budget that I think we can all be truly proud of. It is a budget that will help make Melbourne the best and fairest city in the world. I do commend this budget to councillors. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the motion that is before us? Councillor Raphael Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I could not make any comments because one of the biggest budget in here, it is in the portfolio that I'm leading, and is safety and cleaning. And I'm also Deputy for Infrastructure. And I would like to thank you first, Councillor Gladys Leo, as my deputy, and the entire team from the safety and cleaning portfolios and the other teams for the hard work for today. But the important thing here is right to speak on the safety and cleaning items with this budget, because at its core, this is about getting the basics right and being a city that truly cares. A city that cares about public health, about safety, and about dignity, pride, and everyday experiences of every person who lives, works, and spends the time here, and who deserves to feel safe, respected, valued in their own city. For too long, our community has been asking for something simple to feel safe, where they live, walk, and gather. This proposal meets that expectation of practical balanced action that recognize safety, cleanliness, and public health are deeply connected in this budget. For example, doubling our community safety officers is not just a numbers exercise. It is about presence. It is about having trained people on the ground who can respond early, de-escalate situations, and build trust with the community. Prevention is always more effective and more humane than reaction. Equally important is the investment of 2.3 million in acute mental health workers. We all know that many of the challenges we see in our streets are not criminal issues at their core. They are health issues. Sending the right professionals to respond is not only more compassionate, it's more effective. It connects people with support rather than punish them further into crisis. The expansion of lighting in laneways and improved cameras coverage is another essential step. Good urban design is one of the most powerful tools we have. When spaces are well lit and visible, people feel safer, and antisocial behavior is less likely to occur. This is about reclaiming our public spaces for everyone. But safety is not only about enforcement and visibility, it's also about cleanliness, care, public health. When our streets, parks, and laneways are clean, well-maintained, and respected, it reduces hazards, improving well-being, and sends a clear signal that space is valued and looked after. That's why the waste and cleaning investments in this budget are so important and frankly long overdue. We are delivering a food and garden organic service to high-rise apartments Something residents have been asking for years. So we already combined 77 high-rise buildings are already confirmed in the stage 1 with hundreds of bins to be rolled out and a full communication program underway. This is a real progress toward a more sustainable, cleaner, and a healthier city. We are installing 500 new solar compactors bins across the municipality in few months, improving efficiency, reducing overflow in busy areas, and because overflowing waste is not just unsightly, it's a public health issue. We are introducing 2 new electric rapid response waste trucks for the central city, ensuring that when bins are full, they are dealt with quickly, protecting both amenity and hygiene. And importantly, we are establishing a dedicated rapid response clean team operating 7 days a week from 8 a.m. specifically to tackle illegal dumping and litter hotspots. This is about responsiveness. It is about pride in your city. And it is about protecting the health and safety of everyone who uses this space. We are also supporting local business through the installation of new mini and large waste compactors, helping them manage waste more effectively while keeping our streets cleaner and healthier. These are not small measures. They are practical, visible actions that residents will notice every single day, and they directly contribute to safer, healthier Melbourne. But we also need to be honest about the context in which this council is operating. We are increasingly being asked to do more with less. Cost shifting from the state, Labour government continues to place significant pressure on local government, forcing councils like ours to step in and fund services that should not be ours to carry alone. At the same time, there has been a disappointing lack of minimal advocacy on action from our local MP, the Greens' Alan Sandell, 12 years of inaction, who should be standing up for a city when that support is missing. The burden falls back on this council and ultimately on your ratepayers. Despite that, despite the budget, we steps up. It delivers safety through presence. It delivers compassion through mental health support. It delivers prevention through design. And it delivers dignity through cleanness, care, and a clear commitment to public health. Most importantly, it delivers on what our community has constantly told us. They want safer streets, better support for vulnerable people, and cleaner, health, more welcoming public space. This is not abstract policy debate. This is about whether someone feels safe in walking home at night, whether persons in crisis get help instead of being ignored, whether our laneway are places of activity and connection, not fear, and whether our city is clean, cared for, and health for people who live in. This is what doing the basics right looks like. I commend this budget tonight. Back to you, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Camillo. Would any other councillors like to speak to the agenda item before us? Councillor David Grievous.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to briefly speak to this motion and to the revised budget that we'll be considering and passing tonight, and want to add my thanks to those of other councillors, to our officers who have put in so much work over such a long period of time to bring this document and this piece of work together, starting, as I'm sure they will again tomorrow, with the day after the budget being passed, thought begins on the next year's budget. But particularly over the last 6 months or so to our CEO and everyone else who's been part of that process, a big thank you. and perhaps to differ a little from one of my councillor colleagues, acknowledge the work that has gone in on consulting the community through this process, thank the officers who've been in charge of making sure that consultation took place, and thank my fellow councillors. I think that we've probably done more as a councillor group in getting out on the ground through listening posts and other initiatives to make sure that we're hearing the voices of Melburnians, whether they are people who live here, whether they are people who work here, residents, or other people who spend time in the city, all of whom have a right to say what we are spending our money on. I think that it's particularly fruitful to have a look at some of the changes that have been made as a result of those consultations, and Lord Mayor, acknowledging that you mentioned some of these, but I think some of the stories that we heard at the consultation previously around food insecurity, and particularly the positive messages that we heard when we visited the Queen Victoria Market recently. A very large number of councillors quite rightly attended that event, and to see that there's an alteration to the budget, meaning that there'll be an additional $250,000 invested in initiatives for food security, I think is an excellent move. And also I'd like to thank all of the people from Docklands who have taken the time, both through our council consultation processes and through other opportunities. I've been down to Docklands a number of times recently, talking to residents about their desires to see improved amenity right throughout the Docklands, which is a large area, particularly recently around Ron Barassi Senior Park, and thank those residents who took time to meet with me down there. I think that while the sentence that we've got here in the change to the annual plan is reasonably simple, address infrastructure and amenity opportunities at Docklands, we all know here in this building just how much work that can involve and how much benefit can arise from that work. So thank you to everyone who's made that possible. And also staying with the positive themes, I really want to thank everyone who submitted about greening and open space across the City of Melbourne, recognising both the very large investment which is being made in this year's budget, but also advocating in many instances for their street or their block, as well as for larger areas. They want to see more open space, they want to see more greening, and we're delivering that in this budget. I think it really whets the appetite of both councillors and officers to know that there is that kind of support out there. To finish off, we reported on that at last week's Parks and Gardens Advisory Committee, letting those people who take on that important role know just how valued that work is by people who spend time here in the City of Melbourne. It's great to see that reflected. And one little plug, the opportunity to be part of that advisory committee is now open, and I would heartily commend that. People can find out more on the Participate Melbourne page. With all of that said, I am happy to be supportive of this budget tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths, and thank you for your mighty contribution in the environment portfolio. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? Councillor Dr. Ball.
Lord Mayor, I just wondered if there are members of the public who wanted to fill the vacant seats, can they be invited forward? There are seats here with bags and so forth.
Seeing a head nod indicating that's not possible.
Are there vacant seats here that can? I know there's members of the public who can't see, and the purpose of this was that people could see. Is that possible? There's seats here.
Our CEO is going to have a look at the matter. All right. Are there any other submitters who wish to, sorry, are there any other councillors who wish to speak to the agenda item before us? No? In that case, Councillor Dr. Ball.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do wish to speak to this budget revised for us tonight, and to thank all of the staff who've done an extraordinary amount of work on it. It's truly mind-bending, the complexity of this document, and I do want to thank them very, very much. I note that 2 weeks ago, when we had a special meeting to receive verbal submissions on this budget, or rather the draft version of this budget, the Lord Mayor stressed that night that this is democracy. And yet there was a chorus of voices that night that appears to have fallen on deaf ears. And some of those voices I would like to reiterate tonight. The primary concern of submitters that night was the CSO program. And my primary concern with this budget is the expansion of the CSO program. I note that there were 52 survey responses supporting the program, but 966 Melburnians have signed a petition calling on us to end it. So I wonder if my colleagues have heard what the community is trying to say to us. There are red flags that ought to concern us, that ought to make us pause rather than barge ahead. To quote the Inner Melbourne Community Legal, the CSO program poses, quote, substantial reputational and legal risks for council. Without clear lawful authority, every time a CSO conducts a citizen's arrest, and there have been 4 such arrests in a 6-month period, especially where they may use force, including handcuffs, they risk allegations of false imprisonment, assault, breaches of human rights, negligence and discrimination. Individual CSOs may face criminal and civil action, and should a member of the public be harmed by a CSO's actions, the council could be exposed to significant damages. And this is not my wild speculation. This is what lawyers have repeatedly tried to warn us of. And if you're not going to listen to them, we should heed the decision just weeks ago of the Queensland Supreme Court finding against Moreton Bay City Council. The judge in that case found that that council's compliance notices and its disposal of personal property were unreasonable, unnecessary and disproportionate. He found that moving a person on from one place to another is, quote, not reasonable or justifiable, and that forcing homeless people to move on does nothing to address the problem, and destroying belongings without following proper processes was unlawful. I want to emphasise that my concerns are not with our officers, who are no doubt doing what they were employed to do, but with the decisions of this council and its disregard for the warnings and will of the community. Our homeless strategy talks a lot about reducing stigma that surrounds unhoused people, but the CSO program does the opposite. It doesn't reduce fear and stigma, it heightens them. Kira Patterson told us 2 weeks ago, I'm not intimidated by the existence of homeless people living in our public spaces. It can be confronting to see homeless people, but it's confronting because homelessness is a moral failure. They're not scary. I'm not concerned for my safety. I'm concerned for theirs. The Lord Mayor has expressed tonight a desire to make our streets kinder and safer. But as Kira observed, what is clear is that people are not feeling helped. They're not feeling like these are welfare checks. They are not experiencing this program as having anything to do with their safety. Danielle Haley pointed out in her submission one of the great failings of this program. People sleeping rough have had no input into the program's design, delivery, or evaluation. In fact, no one in the community has been consulted. This program was created and then repeatedly extended and now expanded without the usual community engagement processes, which ought to be standard for such a dramatic and expensive departure from usual council functions. And Fluffy told us, if vulnerable people are treated as problems to remove instead of human beings to support, then we should expect continued resistance from the community. People are not going to stay silent while harm is being normalised in the name of public safety. I have no doubt if East Melbourne residents came to Town Hall in similar numbers demanding change to some council policy, there is no way they would be ignored in the way these residents have been ignored over the past year. It is inconceivable that this amount of resistance, this depth of rejection of council policy, this number of people clamouring to be heard would be ignored by this council if it came from almost any other quarter of the community. 1,000 Melburnians have asked council to cancel the CSO program. I cannot condone this budget which expands it instead, on the basis of no evidence, no evaluation, no consultation. At a time when Victoria Police has just doubled its foot patrols in the CBD, now is the time to end this trial and spend that money instead to do our utmost to solve homelessness. Our Homes Melbourne team has identified ways to expand our new homelessness services contracts, but plus council has ambitions to build more social housing. Let's do both those things that actually make a beneficial difference. That is a budget I could vote for. This one I cannot.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Ball. Would any other councillors like to speak to this agenda item? No? Okay. In that case, I will put the motion to the vote. All those... Oh, sorry, you've got a right of reply. Back to you, Councillor Owen Guest.
I won't speak at length. I think everyone's had some very valid points to make regarding this budget, and we all know it isn't all things to all people. I can understand Councillor Ball's objections, even if I don't necessarily agree with the individual points she makes. I understand your frustrations when it comes to community consultation. A number of us have brought this up from time to time. As you probably know, my frustration revolves around transparency, and I will keep pushing for that over the next 12 months. I won't go so far as to vote against the budget, but I can understand frustration. I will keep pushing to get my full support on budgets going forward. I hope it's known that I want to see improvements in the area of transparency, so we can all be confident that what we're going to spend of the community's money, we can look all the community in the eye and say, this is what we're doing. I know we can do better, and in 12 months, I'd like to see us do better. That's what I want to see. But thank you, and I reiterate to everybody, thank you for all the work that has gone into this. I'd also say I think we could improve the process, but we'll talk about that behind the scenes. Over to you, Lord Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councillor Guest. On that note, I will be now putting this motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand of the budget motion. All right. Councillor Griffiths, Councillor Leilu, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Scott, Councillor Liu, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Louis and Councillor Rees. All those against? Councillor Ball. Any councillors abstaining? Councillor Guest. That motion and the budget is passed. All right, so we move on to our next agenda item, 6.2, Community Engagement Policy 2026-2030. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? No, in that case, I'm going to request that a motion please be put on the screen. And I'm looking to you, Councillor Gladys Liu, to just confirm that is the correct motion. I believe it to be. All right, take that as moved. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Back to you, Councillor Gladys Liu.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As the portfolio head for Community Health and City Services, I'm pleased to move this item before us tonight. I would like to, first of all, thank the officers and also the written submissions on this. I know quite a number of them have done that. Now, this policy is important because it sets out how the City of Melbourne listens to, engages with, and involves our community in decision-making. It also reflects our commitment to transparent.
We've got a microphone issue there. Thanks, Councillor Rouse. Might just see if someone from the support team.
Transparent, inclusive.
Let's connect.
And meaningful engagement across the city. Importantly, this we've done reviews and has been developed and it's not done behind closed doors. We actually have done community engagement. It has been shaped through extensive consultation with residents, businesses, stakeholders, and community groups over 2 phases of engagement. And what is pleasing to see is it has expanded, it has looked at the demographics of the city, and we do understand we have a lot of people in the city, they speak a language other than English. So the inclusion of people from the multicultural background, it is so important, and I really commend the officers for doing so. The feedback received was clear. Our community wants engagement that is easy to participate in and it's relevant to them and is clear in purpose and more transparent about how feedback informs council decisions. So I'm not saying this is perfect, but it is so good to have this document, this policy to guide us to do what we need to do, and that is to listen to the community, to engage the community. I'm very pleased that the revised policy responds directly to the feedback, while also aligning with the requirements of the Local Government Act 2020 and the principles of good governance. So this is a policy that I would like to put forward and also recommend colleagues to vote for. It is important to have a clear policy to engage the community, and I commend this motion before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gladys Liu, and thank you for all your efforts in shepherding this policy through Town Hall. Over to you, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and you've slightly stolen my thunder there, but I'm in complete agreement. I was going to commence my remarks by thanking Councillor Liu for the work that she has done on this policy as the lead for the portfolio that's responsible for it over the time that we've been here together in Council. That has been a genuinely large amount of work, and the policy that we have before us is better for it. And directly informed by some of Councillor Liu's personal experiences and knowledge, and the way that that has shaped the document into a better format is a very positive thing. And in turn, thank you to everyone from the officer team who've worked with us at Portfolio and would have worked with the councillor group more fully over a long period of time now to bring this very important document to us. It's very exciting to have it in place, and I think it is going to revolutionise the way that we do some of our consultation. The way that the consultation around this document itself occurred, I think was outstanding. 360 contributions in 2 different rounds is a very genuinely large amount of public consultation, and the document is better for that as well. I do want to call out B. McNichols, I want to call out Stan Cap, David Willis and others who have continually rightly pointed us in the direction of other parts of policy and made this document better as well. This is a community effort as a document and will allow us to better communicate and better consult with our community, and I'm very happy to be seconding this motion tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Griffiths, and thank you for bringing all your many years of experience in civic engagement to this process as well. Are there any other speakers to this agenda item? Councillor Guest.
Can't believe I just put my hand up, given I am willing to support this policy, but I would just highlight a policy is only as good. You know, it's just a bunch of papers that we can read. When it comes to community consultation, the proof will be in the pudding, and I do hope that Melbourne's ratepayers will receive as strong a voice as some of the other groups that we always seem to reach out to, but the ratepayers are often left behind. I know they're in this policy now there, if you look hard, but the proof will be in the pudding. In the meantime, yes, I will support this policy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Guest. Any other speakers to this item? I'll also just speak to it briefly and congratulate Councillor Gladys Liu, Councillor David Griffiths and all the councillors that have worked on this. I also want to single out the officers as well, Anthea and the team. It's been quite an effort to get this important policy to this stage. And look, rightly so. You know, we've got a really active citizenship here in the city of Melbourne, and that's a great thing. It means here at Town Hall, our feet are constantly held to the fire, which is a good thing in a democracy. And, you know, we've got people who are really engaged in what we do, the business of the city. And they want to make sure that their voices are heard and that we use the right mechanisms to listen and involve people in the decisions that shape their city. We had very strong participation in this process, over 360 contributors overall. I also want to particularly single out, as has already been done in part, Dr. Stan Cap, B. McNichols, David Willis, Jackie Watts, all outstanding citizens who really engage in the business of Town Hall, and we are better for it. Councillor Guest, you touched on some of the improvements that were made following feedback from citizens around our engagement policy. There's a couple of changes I want to particularly call out. I'll start with the one that you mentioned. We now have clearer recognition of ratepayers as a distinct stakeholder group. There you go. It's in the policy. Who would have thought? The ratepayer is now recognised as a distinct stakeholder group for purposes of our consultation processes. We've also clarified that deliberative processes will be used where they are the most effective way to reach a decision, that every engagement is formally planned and documented. We've got some new mandated structured processes, tools and guidance. And there's also a practical commitment around a stronger focus on being present in the community. And I know the DLM's been, Deputy Lord Mayor's been a real champion on this one, and ongoing councillor listening posts across the municipality. Who would have thought? There it is, regular, place-based, visible listening. This is taking democracy to a new level here in our city, and isn't that a wonderful thing? So I am very pleased that we're about to vote on this. I commend it to councillors. I do hope it meets with your support. Councillor Gladys Liu, do you want a right of reply after all of that? All right, in that case, I will put this to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I'm going to declare that you carried unanimously. We move on to agenda item 6.3, quarterly performance report, council plan, finances and capital program Q3 25-26. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this item? No, in that case, I'm going to please request that a motion be put up on the screen, and I'm looking for a councillor to move it. Thank you, Councillor Dr. Owen Guest. I will second it. Back to you, Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This one won't be long, but this is a report that basically has a look to see where we are 3 quarters into the financial year. And the good news is that by and large, we are on track. If we look at our 31 key activities in the budget for 25-26, the vast majority of them, 28 out of 31, are on track, with a couple of them being monitored. On top of that, our capital works program is also on track, which is good news. For those interested in the numbers, it says here the underlying deficit variance is $0.4 million. That's $400,000 on a budget of over $700 million. So I don't want to trivialise it, but I would call it white noise at this stage, as pointed out there. It's in relation to employee costs, and I don't want to blow Lincoln's thunder, but I know in the next 3 months the expectation is for things to be all on track. In terms of highlights, over the last 9 months, possibly the biggest 2, I would say that we've seen 25 new cameras being installed in existing locations, and also the swimming lesson program was delivered in Melbourne City Baths, Kensington Community Recreation and the Aquatic Centre over January. Lots of good things, financially speaking. We're where we should be 9 months into the financial year, 3 months to come, but no sparks or emergencies on the horizon.
Fabulous. Thanks, Councillor Guest. I also speak in support of this motion. The headline from this report is clear. Strong and disciplined delivery. That is what we are doing here at the City of Melbourne. 90% of our 31 key activities are on track. In terms of some highlights, I was delighted to see we delivered our free fitness programs with many participants. We exceeded targets for free swimming lessons with more than 600 residents participating. And as you've already identified it, we added a further 25 new cameras to our Safe City camera network, making that more than 100 this year using new gen high-tech cameras. They are extraordinary. In terms of the financial deficit, there's a small underlying deficit of 0.6 million, noting that there is a seasonality to our reporting, and we do remain on track for an end-of-year surplus. And on the capital front, we continue to deliver strongly on that in a pretty challenging infrastructure environment, it's fair to say. So all things considered, a strong report and a council which is strong and disciplined in its delivery. Any other councillors want to speak to this item? No, in that case, I will put the matter to the vote. All those, Council, you. All right, let's, if you're in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 6.4, Queen Victoria Market Precinct Renewal Program Quarterly Report. Would councillors like a presentation on this item? No. Okay, in that case, I will request that the motion be put up there. I am now calling on a councillor to move the motion. Yes, you move it, councillor. You move it, Councillor Camillo. I'll second it. Over to you, Councillor Camillo.
Lord Mayor, as the portfolio deputy for infrastructure, I'm very pleased to be moving this motion. So the Queen Victoria Market Precinct Renewal Program remains one of the most significant city shaping projects currently underway in Melbourne. Since the program commenced in 2013, a total 225 million has been invested into the renewal, with substantial progress continuing across a number of key projects. Importantly, we are now seeing major core infrastructure works reach advanced stages. And I and several councillors this week, we visited the site earlier, and we saw the new trader shed is moving closer to completion, hopefully around close to the end of the year, and with the building now fully enclosed in internal fit-out works underway. Planning is also continuing for future stages of the renewal program, including works on the historic market building and a new waste management solution to support long-term operations. I thank officers for the continued work in progressing this important program. Back to you, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Camillo. Indeed, the Queen Victoria Market Renewal Program expenditures now reach $225 million. This reflects our long-term commitment to protecting Queen Victoria Market while ensuring it remains fit for the future. The program continues to progress. In this financial year to date, we've delivered $39 million worth of works. The new trader shed is nearing completion. A number of councillors and myself visited that the other day. It is an extraordinary building, and the facade works are largely done and internal fit-out is underway. Looking forward to that opening later this year. We're also progressing works around the Queen Street public realm and new waste and operational systems. And we are progressing on a number of other fronts as well. Are there any other councillors? So I commend this motion to councillors. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak to this item? No, in that case, I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. All right, we move on to the next agenda item, 6.5, Governance Protocols for Wholly Owned Subsidiary Companies, Biennial Review FY 25-26. Drum roll, would councillors like a presentation on this agenda item? No? All right, Lincoln, you're off the hook. We're going to request that a motion be brought up on the screen, and I'm looking for a councillor to move it. Thank you, Councillor Owen Guest. I will second it. Back to you, Councillor Dr. Guest.
Thank you again, Lord Mayor. For those who are listening, this is a document referring to the protocol, if you like, documents the roles and responsibilities and reporting requirements with respect to our subsidiaries, they being Citywide and the Queen Victoria Market. An example would be how we would appoint a director to the Queen Victoria Market. Within these biennial changes, a lot of it is clerical, but one significant change is it brings our governance into alignment with the ASX corporate governance rules. So that is one, I think, somewhat a significant change. I support this biennial report. Over to you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Guest. I have nothing to add as seconder. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? No, in that case, Councillor, just getting ahead of things. All right, in that case, I will put this matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. Just noting Councillor Leilu has temporarily stepped out, I believe. All right, we move on to agenda item 6.6, new lease warehouse consolidation. Would councillors like a presentation in relation to this matter? No. In that case, I'm going to request that a motion please be put up on the screen. And I'm looking for a councillor to move that motion. Thank you, Councillor Guest. I will second it. back to you, councillor Guest.
Thank you again, Lord Mayor. This is really what I would call an efficiency motion, and at its core, it is amalgamating the various warehouses held within the City of Melbourne and, if you like, putting them all into one warehouse out in, I think it's Altona North, done for reasons of efficiency and cost. I support this motion.
Thanks, councillor Guest. Like you, I am supporting this motion. I do note that, importantly, the preferred option delivers around a 13% reduction in overall lease costs over the initial term. That is a clear financial benefit to this organisation. Ultimately, this is about smarter use of resources, and I think the officer's paper clearly demonstrates that that is what is occurring, reducing cost, improving efficiency and maintaining flexibility in our property portfolio. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? No? Councillor Leilu.
I didn't really get a chance to put in amendments because we did actually discuss this today. I'm keen to, and happy not to put in there, but just due to note with council officers, I'm really keen. I think the council group is really keen to just know what is our warehouse, I guess, strategy approach, because I think that we will be potentially needing other things going into the future, also to the CEO as well. Potentially looking at how do we bring that back to the councillor group to look at other options, because we've been with, I think over the years we have been inundated with requests, whether it be through donation of arts, through other things. And so potentially there might be an opportunity for us to come together and say, expand on this rather than kind of just looking at consolidating and going through this. I do know that it's 5 years for this, so there will be potentially other time, but I just don't at the same time we either use within this 5 years to do the work, or if potentially to expand and look at it, so that at least we have that option going forward. So I won't put that to today, but I'm keen to have a discussion. So maybe just take it offline and we can discuss it. But otherwise, thank you for this, and really good to see the consolidation and happy to support it.
All right, thank you for that, Councillor Leilu. I've heard you say you're not seeking an answer to that today, but you do want to report on that strategic approach. Yep, that's fine. Noted, and CEO Alison Layton has confirmed that is all good. Councillor Raphael Camillo.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's just to continue my fellow colleagues in here. We also discussed today maybe have a possibility, maybe after these years, 5 years, maybe have a consideration, maybe buying a place and instead to pay rent, pay the mortgage too. So maybe it's an alternative thing. But I'm happy to discuss this further with my colleague and work out with the team later on. Thank you.
All right, so we'll incorporate that as part of a briefing paper and feedback on that. Okay, good. Good suggestions there. All right, are there any other speakers to this motion before us? No, in that case, we'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Seeing everyone, including Kevin Louis, declare that carried unanimously. Okay, that concludes the reports from management. So now we move on to general business. There is one item of general business. It's a petition. City of Melbourne, stop the CSO program now. And this would be a, can I please request that a motion be put up on the screen? Yep. All right, do we have a mover for that motion?
Just that the first clause should be 966. Thank you.
All right, and that's so moved. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Griffiths.
Perhaps with the inclusion of the word "of" between the instigator and the petition in clause 3.
Yep. Did you catch that point, Liz? Did you want to make that point again, Councillor Griffiths?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In the third clause, insert the word "of" between the instigator and the petition.
All right, as this is a procedural motion, we will not be having a debate. So I will therefore put the procedural motion to a vote. All those in favour of us accepting the petition, please raise your hands. I declare that carried unanimously. Oh, no, sorry, okay. Councillor Rees, Councillor Ball, Councillor Rouse, Councillor Leilu, Councillor Scott, Councillor
You called Philip's name, Philip.
Are you putting your hand up? No. Okay, so I'll continue with reading out the councillors who are voting in favour of a procedural motion to accept a petition. Councillor Guest, Councillor Camillo, Councillor Griffiths, Councillor Louis. All those against us receiving a petition? No votes. Anyone abstaining from voting on a procedural motion about whether or not we should receive a petition? Councillor Leilu. All right, that procedural motion has passed. This concludes the items of general business. So we move now on to agenda item 8, urgent business. Are there any items of proposed urgent business? I don't believe there are. So therefore we move to agenda item 9, which is closure of the open meeting. I call for a councillor to move the motion displayed on the screen to close the meeting to the public to consider items of confidential business. Thank you, Councillor Guest. Seconded, Deputy Lord Mayor. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried unanimously. So the open meeting will now be closed. I wish to thank members of the public for their interest and attendance and declare the open meeting closed to the public at 6:45 p.m. Thank you very much.